Hey everybody, it is Friday, August 29th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Wanunu on this last August edition of the Mo News Podcast for 2025.
And I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to as we head into this Labor Day weekend. As we end the 8th month of the year and head into month 9, Jill, 2/3 of the year is in the books. How are you feeling?
In the words of Larry David, pretty good, Moshe.
She's ready for 2026, folks.
I'm ready for fall, as we've discussed ad nauseum here on the podcast.
That's been the theme of the podcast. A reminder for those of you who just can't get enough of what is happening in the news, breaking things down. All coverage starting today for the next 4 days shifts to our premium account over on Premium Instagram. We'll be there through Monday night. So depending on what goes down this weekend, we'll have some lighter fare, some serious fare. We'll see what happens. But if you're not a member of Mo News Premium already, it is a way to support us, support the team, support our growth. The majority of our funding comes from all of you. It is a great thing. It keeps us answerable to you, keeps us accountable to you. And so for all of you who have not joined yet, we have a special sale going on for Mo News Premium. The code is WORKIT, WORKIT, WORKIT. It's 15% off our annual membership. And with that, you get our premium Instagram, you get our premium podcast, you get our workshops, you get our Slack channel, you get access to all our Instagram content off of Instagram, for those of you who want to do digital detox. We have a fun product coming to you very soon. I think as soon as next week, Jill. The AMA, the Ask Moshe Anything podcast.
Guys, he said anything. So get creative, okay?
Get creative. Jill has questions. Jill may be submitting some questions anonymously. And if this goes well, Jill, you know what's coming after the AMA podcast? The AJA podcast, Ask Jill Anything podcast.
Please do. I don't know if I'll be able to answer it, but I could try.
Get creative, folks. Get creative. Ask Jill anything you have top of your mind. So anyway, a lot coming to you over on Premium. It's a way to support us. It's a way to get that extra content. It's a way to do the digital detox and still get your news coverage. A whole variety of reasons to join over at mo.news/premium, mo.news/premium. The code just for this weekend is WORKIT, as in, Labor Day, Monday, work it. You get it.
I think it's self-explanatory, but at the same time, Labor Day is so synonymous with the end of summer that I don't know if people necessarily equate it with labor, like working.
No, it's worth a reminder.
Okay, let's get to some headlines. Starting again in Minnesota, where we are learning more about the shooting at a Catholic school, why police say it could have been so much worse. Also, some really disturbing insight into the shooter's mindset.
And we also heard for the first time from one of the victims' fathers how he wants his 8-year-old son to be remembered.
Really heartbreaking. To politics, more chaos at the CDC. As we reported, HHS Secretary RFK Jr. trying to fire the CDC director because of disagreements about vaccines. How the CDC staff is reacting.
Yeah, we'll tell you about a big walkout they held yesterday.
And sticking with politics, it is an unprecedented year. So how about a somewhat unprecedented mini convention before the midterms? Democrats are considering it, and now apparently so is President Trump.
More conventions. They heard you, folks. That's what the average American was looking for. They're like, you know what would be great? More political conventions.
Because everyone's feeling so good about politics right now.
Yeah, they're like, you know what we need? I can't wait every 4 years for those conventions. Like, I just wish there were more of them.
The only people who are into this are political reporters, I think, who are like, great, give us another convention.
And the media companies that own the networks, they love a live event, Jill. One of the few things driving TV viewers their way these days.
In D.C., the mayor giving some unexpected praise to federal efforts to help cut crime in the city. What part of President Trump's plan the mayor says is working? In business news, Gap stock is falling, but a surprise bright spot in its earnings report, Banana Republic, which it owns, is finally seeing some progress in its turnaround plan.
My high school wardrobe rejoices, Jill.
Moshe, we're all about the 90s here on this podcast.
The 90s are back. But we'll tell you about one of the brands under Gap that is not doing so well.
And it's Labor Day weekend. Where are people going? We'll tell you about the Labor Day travel hotspots. And it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating. Okay, we are learning more about Wednesday's horrific mass shooting at the Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis that left 2 children, 8 and 10 years old, dead. Police on Thursday said that 20 people had been shot. That is one more than the 19 they had originally thought. And that's because one child was actually taken by private vehicle to a hospital outside the city. All of the hospitalized victims, including those in critical condition, are expected to survive. The victims are kids ages 6 to 15 and also 3 adults in their 80s. And as horrific as the mass shooting was, the Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara said on Thursday that it could have been even worse if not for the church's protocol to lock the church doors once the mass was underway. He told the Today Show that because of that, the shooter was not able to get inside of the church during Wednesday morning's mass.
So this coward had to fire from outside of the church, through the church windows and into the church.
Wow.
And we believe him not being able to get into the church likely saved countless lives.
Police are saying the shooter fired 116 rifle rounds, which would mean that he went through numerous magazines and was also able to reload multiple times. There were also 3 shotgun shells and 1 live round recovered from a handgun that appeared to malfunction as the shooter used it. We're also learning a lot more about the shooter, who we're going to name just once in this report, 23-year-old Robin Westman. Birth name Robert Westman, but legally changed to be in line with what they wanted their gender identity to be back in 2020.
Though we should note in one of the YouTube videos that was published after the shooting, they scheduled it to publish afterwards and then was taken down. The shooter discusses their regrets and their continued confusion about their gender identity. Jill, one of the reasons why, as you've been watching coverage of this, you're seeing references to he and she, depending on legal documents, what the police are saying. It keeps going back and forth.
Right. And on Thursday, law enforcement officials painted a picture of a person that they say hated everyone, but idolized previous mass shooters. The acting attorney general for Minnesota, Joe Thompson, said the shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings describing his plan, mental state, and also hate toward almost every group, from Black people to Mexican to Christians and Jews. Take a listen to what Thompson had to say.
In short, the shooter appeared to hate all of us. There appears to be only one group that the shooter didn't hate. One group of people who the shooter admired. The group were the school shooters and mass murderers that are notorious in this country. And it's going to be hard to hear, but it's important to the question of why this happened. More than anything, the shooter wanted to kill children, defenseless children.
Moshe, I was watching that press conference live on Thursday, and it was actually hard to listen to. It was so upsetting. And it's also why the police chief and the acting attorney general made the point of saying they're not going to be repeating the shooter's name because that's what he wanted, this type of attention, and they do not want to give it to him.
Yeah, that's always the challenge in covering these is you want to report out the facts. People are often wondering who the shooter was, what their motive was, all of that. And at the same time, these shooters idolize each other. They study each other. If you look at the YouTube video that this person posted, they wrote the names of several infamous mass shooters, including the killer at Newtown in Sandy Hook, on the gun. Of all people on earth, the only people that apparently this shooter in Minneapolis idolized and liked were previous mass shooters. And so that's why you see an ongoing debate within the media, outside the media, from viewers and listeners about what is the appropriate way to cover these things to ensure that you give them the proper attention that they deserve, you get to the bottom of it, but also not create celebrities out of these disgusting human beings. Jill, it was tough to listen to these press conferences yesterday where they went through, what this person hated, who this person hated, right? The Jews, Israel, Catholic, Republicans, Trump. And then beyond that, children specifically, the most innocent among us. I couldn't even get through the entire video and some of the documents with the manuscript because it was just revolting and disgusting. It really makes you wonder what friends or family knew. And I imagine authorities, law enforcement, are interviewing all of them and trying to get to the bottom of it, pinpoint what went wrong here, what was lost. But this reinforces, I mean, we've seen this in shooting after shooting, the importance of family monitoring members who are not mentally well and trying to ensure they can't get near weapons and do something. Because if you look at this person's writings, it's, it sounds like they had checked out, they were done, and ultimately they saw this as their only avenue. The question, of course, is what conversations, if any, were happening with people who were close to them, if they had anyone still close to them. We do know that the shooter spent time planning this attack, sketching out the interior of the church, had gone to school here. The mother had retired from working here. She had worked there for a number of years. And apparently the shooter had been to the church some time ago, saying they wanted to return to their faith. But the belief is that that was a cover for them being able to do some recon on the church itself. Again, the firearms here were purchased legally, all three of them. Reporters asked yesterday the police chief and the attorney general if any of the disturbing social media posts would have flagged the person so he couldn't purchase guns. They said no. This individual was not arrested for anything that would have prevented them from buying firearms. And that's something we've discussed repeatedly on this podcast, as you guys ask, is ultimately, unless a judge determines you mentally unfit as far as the court is concerned, or you're put in an institution, in many states, those are the only barriers to you buying a gun. And that didn't happen in this case. There was a traffic ticket from a few years ago, and that was pretty much it. That's one of the reasons why See Something, Say Something is so important. If you see disturbing pages, even if you don't know who they belong to, it's important to flag those to social media, important to flag those to local or state or national law enforcement, and they can further investigate those. And so that's the latest on what we know about the shooter themselves. As for the victims here on Thursday, we heard from the father of one of the kids who was killed, Jesse Merkel, the father of 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, who was sent to school on Wednesday morning and never came home. He said he hopes his son is remembered for the person he was, not the act that ended his life. Here's Jesse Merkel.
Yesterday, a coward decided to take our 8-year-old son Fletcher away from us. Because of their actions, we will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming. Fletcher loved his family, friends, fishing, cooking, and any sport that he was allowed to play.
Jesse went on to say yesterday to all the parents out there, a reminder to always give your kids that extra hug.
All right, time for the speed read, starting with the latest chaos at the CDC. This from the Mo News Instagram. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. defending the firing of CDC Director Susan Monarez, saying, quote, "The agency is in trouble and we need to fix it. Some people should not be working there anymore." In an interview on Fox News Thursday, Kennedy accused the CDC of misinformation during COVID on testing, masking, and school closures, and criticized its priorities, including faulting it for promoting vaccines. Monarez was confirmed just last month and touted at the time by Trump and RFK as the right person for the job. But she was fired by the Trump administration just a couple of weeks into the job after refusing to resign and resisting pressure to alter vaccine policy and fire senior staff. Her attorney writing, quote, "She chose to protect the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted." Her firing was followed by the resignation of at least 4 top officials. The exodus has fueled fears that Kennedy's allies will further weaken vaccine recommendations. A top advisor to RFK Jr., Jim O'Neill, will serve as the acting leader of the CDC.
And a reminder that Trump actually had a first choice for CDC named Dave Weldon, a former Republican congressman. He was deemed as too anti-vax and not able to get to the Senate. And so that's when they went to Monarez, who, again, they touted as the right person for the job. But ultimately, just deciding a couple weeks in, she was not. We went into some detail yesterday on the podcast that effectively RFK was trying to make certain demands of her. And she said, no, I need to see evidence. I'm not going to just fire people left and right. And I need to see more evidence before I can endorse some of the things you want to do when it comes to vaccines. He said, that's not good enough. She went to some members of Congress, members of the Senate, including some top Republicans who helped get RFK through, saying, can you help me out here? Apparently they went to bat for her at the White House. didn't mean much because ultimately they still tried to force her resignation. And then when she refused to resign, they fired her. So that then led to a domino effect. A number of senior officials at the CDC then resigning their positions in recent days. It includes the chief medical officer. It includes the chief of vaccines and respiratory diseases, the director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases, as well as the data chief. Jill, also yesterday, CDC employees, very upset about this, staged a walkout for an hour or two yesterday. They actually did something called a clap out, where they applauded the people who were resigning on their way out. It just goes to show you where things stand right now at the CDC, how they're feeling about RFK. And a lot of this was really reinforced, Jill, when that shooting took place at the CDC 2 weeks ago. And they felt completely abandoned, that President Trump didn't address it. And he addresses a lot of things on his social media, as we know, that RFK Jr. Took several days to finally get down there, and that even in interviews about the shooting, still took time to criticize the CDC at a time when several hundred bullets were pumped into the building, and people there felt under threat.
Right, Motion. On Thursday, a reporter asked the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, about that, saying, what is her response as to why the president has not mentioned the shooting? And she gave, a non-answer. She answered, but didn't address that specific question. Yeah,
so they feel totally abandoned there. And there were some people there, Jill, and I've spoken to some, including some of these senior leaders, who said, they went into this open-minded, that if RFK Jr. feels so passionate about MAHA and about changing things, that they were willing to work with him. Especially as he said during his confirmation hearings that he would let science lead some of his decisions here, and he's not there to give Americans medical advice. And then ultimately, so far as they're concerned, they've been disappointed by what they've seen. They feel like, and you saw this in the resignation notes, I read from some of them on yesterday's podcast, that they feel that they're putting politics first. They're putting their supporters first. And ultimately, he's making some of these decisions when it comes to vaccines and other matters based on his gut, based on his feelings, and not based on evidence. And that's where they operate there. And I think, we could go big picture here and talk about some of the legitimate criticisms for the CDC and their conduct during COVID, and reforms that are necessary at the CDC. But it's sort of, you get the same theme here with what you saw with Doge and other matters, which is people say there's got to be some sort of middle ground here, that ultimately a lot of these agencies are in need of reform. The government is in need of cuts. The CDC is in need of reforms. The DOD is, et cetera, and so on and so forth. IRS, name your agency. But the taking of a chainsaw to these places with sometimes a little explanation, a little research before decisions are made is the thing that is frustrating folks internally there, damaging morale. And Jill, they note, someone yesterday wrote to me, we're only 7 or 8 months into this, still have 3.5 years to go. And one more interesting data point here, Jill. Donald Trump, apparently last month, according to donors who were at an event at his New Jersey Golf Club, said to them in a private setting, he wishes he could talk about the coronavirus vaccine more, because he's very proud of Operation Warp Speed. He's very proud of what he was able to achieve there. And he said sort of a version of it this week in the cabinet meeting, where he said, nobody thought we could get it done. And he's right. Nobody thought they could get it done that quickly. And so for him, he's a guy who literally wanted to call the COVID vaccine the Trump vaccine. That's how proud he was of it. I mean, there's other reasons he wanted to call it the Trump vaccine, but ultimately he did not. But he saw where his supporters went on COVID, right? He saw the direction things have gone in, and he's totally embraced RFK. He saw his supporters coming aboard. He saw the MAHA supporters coming aboard. But it is interesting that Trump continues behind the scenes, even when, with CEOs of Pfizer and other companies, to talk about how proud he is of his achievements related to the vaccine, even as all of this is unfolding right now with RFK's leadership at the CDC.
Sticking with politics, from Axios, senior Democratic officials want to hold a rare national convention before the 2026 midterms to showcase candidates and emerging leaders of the party. The event would be kind of like a smaller version of the national conventions that the party holds in presidential election years, and it would allow the party to fundraise and get media attention as it tries to win back both chambers of Congress next year. And it could also create a national stage for Democrats who are running in key House, Senate, and governor's races. Ken Martin, the new chair of the Democratic National Committee, has quietly been pushing the idea with party leaders in Minneapolis this week. It's his first meeting as DNC chair. Martin has noted that the party has held midterm-focused conventions in the past, although not in the last few decades.
Yeah, you have to go back to the 80s for the midterm convention event. Apparently they had one in Philly in 82. The Democrats had one in Memphis back in 78. And I guess it was a thing, among the people who would attend those things, a young governor from Arkansas named Bill Clinton and others who, were trying to get on the national stage at that time. Jill, one of the challenges Democrats have had in the Trump era is how to compete with him when it comes to media and marketing. So this is actually a fairly novel idea. The question is whether they can actually get this thing done. One issue Ken Martin has had, by the way, most of you have probably never heard of Ken Martin. He is the chairman of the Democratic Party, but is a very low-key chairman and has been criticized internally in the party for his lack of organization, lack of fundraising so far to deal with Trump 2.0. So this would be pretty high stakes for them if they did it. Certainly something that would get them some media attention. Certainly we know the networks would love to be covering these things. They love live events. The few things people watch these days, live events like sports, and in some cases news or award shows, right? Those are the few live things that still go on. And Democrats have an issue right now because they don't really have a spokesperson. And the people that are normally associated with them are people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and people of a certain generation. Now, not to be outdone, President Trump yesterday said, you know what? I would like a convention, a mini convention. And so he wrote yesterday, we won every aspect of the presidential election, and based on the great success we are having, poised to win, all caps, big in the midterms. The results are incredible. We're at a record pace. In that light, I am thinking of recommending a national convention to the Republican Party just prior to the midterms. It has never been done before. Stay tuned, ! So, Democrats, you had your idea. Trump likes the idea. I think, Jill, if any of them happen, I think Trump is definitely going to do his mini convention. That's something I would take to the bank. And so, conventions every 2 years, every year, they could be happening.
We used to redistrict every 10 years. Now it's happening more often. So why not do more conventions?
The funny thing is conventions don't actually matter anymore, right? Conventions are just kind of the glorification of who wins the primaries. Conventions used to actually decide who the nominee was back in the day. And then in recent decades, as the parties went to primaries and we voted in every state and voters got to choose who the Democrat and Republican were, the convention just became sort of the affirmation of what the state said. So it's ironic that like at a time where conventions mean the least, we're now going to have more of them. But it's sort of acknowledgement of what they've become, which is it's a media event.
For both parties also, it could be a good chance for them to test out potential presidential candidates and see who's resonating with the party.
Particularly for Democrats, and because the rap on them was in 2024, voters didn't really get to choose on the Democratic side who their nominee was. It was decided for them.
All right, from Fox 5 in Washington, D.C., D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said this week that President Trump's federal surge in the city has delivered significant short-term results. Violent crime is down. Carjackings have dropped 87% compared to last year. And she credits that to the influx of federal agents and National Guard troops that are in the city since Trump's August 11th takeover.
This is what we think in just a couple of weeks of experience has worked. Having more federal law enforcement officers on the street. We think having more stops that got to illegal guns has helped. We think that there's more accountability in the system, or at least perceived accountability in the system, that is driving down illegal behavior.
So, Jill, you said carjacking is down 87%. Property crime, I should add, is down 12%. Violent crime overall, down 45%. You saw a lot of attention given to Bowser's comments that, acknowledging, this has actually been sort of helpful. The issue she faces, and the issue that we've all brought up, is this is not sustainable. Ultimately, this is a 30-day plan. Trump could go to Congress to get approval to continue this beyond 30 days. But what is the long-term solution here? Now, Bowser says that she does need funding for 500 more cops. So she acknowledges more police, more law enforcement would be helpful in Washington, D.C. long term here, because eventually federal forces will end, this sort of program will end at some point. But she also went on to say this week things that are not working, including the several states that have sent their National Guard troops to D.C. She says that has been disorganized, hasn't been that helpful. We're talking about like states like West Virginia and South Carolina and others. She also pointed out that the masked ICE agents is a real problem and has led to increasing community distrust in the police force, because there was this cooperation now between the local police in DC, now that they've been taken over by the feds, and ICE agents. And she says that that's leading to major issues in the community and certain crimes not being reported because ultimately they're scared of potential immigration agents coming in there. So Bowser is hoping for a return to local control in the future. She's really trying to ride the line here, given that for the most part, she doesn't have much of a choice in what's going on.
Some business news from CNBC. Gap's second quarter revenue came in lighter than expected on Thursday, but sales at Banana Republic far exceeded expectations as the brand's turnaround has really started to show some results. Gap is the parent company also behind Old Navy, Athleta, and Banana Republic. Overall, sales rose about 1% during the quarter. And while Gap, Banana Republic, and Old Navy all saw sales increase, Athleta actually dragged down the company's overall performance, the CEO telling CNBC that they have paid a lot of attention trying to court new customers and ultimately didn't have enough offerings for their core customer. So they're going to try to figure that out. They say the rest of the year is going to be a reset. Moshe, I was thinking about the story we recently did about yoga pants, and they are really falling out of favor. So we did the story about how Lululemon has not really seen sales increase how they usually have. And I wonder if that had an impact on Athleta as well.
Yeah, Athleta has an issue. They now have a new boss, a new CEO. It's their third CEO in about 2 years. This person coming in from Nike, incidentally. So we'll see how they adapt. They're going to have to go with more baggier pants, Jill, I guess, over at Athleta to attract Gen Z.
Or the millennial Gen X cuspers like myself who just want to wear something cool.
Yeah, right. Gen Z leading, and then you and your Long Island suburban brethren. The sister of the baggy pants.
Right. When eventually the TikTok trends make their way over to Instagram, that's when I start to get on board.
Right. And then when they make their way to Facebook, that's when the boomers get on board. That's typically how it works in social media, folks. Anyway, one of the big things we will be watching when it comes to Gap, and frankly, all other brands, is how tariffs impact them. They make many of their products in Asia. They've stocked up on things ahead of the many tariffs going into effect. So that's something we'll be watching going into Q4 and early next year.
And finally, it's Labor Day weekend. This from Axios. Travel is expected to surpass last year's record levels. The TSA is preparing to screen hundreds of thousands more passengers than during the 2024 holiday. So they're expecting to screen about 17.4 million people between Thursday and next Wednesday, September 3rd. That's compared to 17.1 million during the same time period last year. So today, Friday, is projected to be the busiest travel day of the Labor Day weekend. And as Moshe and I were mentioning, the good news is that flights, at least domestically, hotels and car rental costs have dropped compared to this weekend last year. And something different, Moshe, this time around, at least when it comes to air travel, this is going to be the first holiday weekend since the TSA lifted the shoe removal policy at security checkouts. So perhaps that will make things go a little bit quicker.
Yeah, you can show up last second for your flight. Totally. No, don't risk it. Don't risk it in the holiday weekend.
Tell me how it goes. I'm still coming 2 hours
that
before.
I paid for TSA pre-check. I haven't had to take my shoes off in a very long time, Jill. We have gotten some stats from AAA on where y'all are headed this weekend. Among the top locations, some of these will not surprise you. Some of these may. Seattle, Orlando, New York, Boston, Anchorage, Alaska, Chicago, Atlanta, Denver, Miami, and Vegas. Top domestic travel destinations for Labor Day weekend this year. As for international travel, hotels are pricing 2% less than last year, but international airfare is 8% more expensive this year, largely due to high demand. Where are you headed? Well, according to the latest stats, Vancouver in first place for Labor Day travel, followed by Rome, Dublin, London, Paris, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Athens, and Lisbon. So have a fun one wherever you're headed. you might already be there checking in on the news. So thank you for doing that. Jill, should we do cheers to the freaking weekend?
Yes, Avi.
Let's do it.
It is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating. Moshe, what are you watching?
The college football season has officially begun, everyone. There are some people who wait for this all year long. And so you have college football.
My husband.
Your husband, Ohio State, ranked number 3 in the preseason rankings right now, just behind Penn State and Texas. Jill, I looked up. Your Wolverines are at number 14 going into this weekend. So we'll monitor all of that. And then, of course, NFL kickoff is later next week. So football season is upon us, folks. Jill, what are you watching?
I've said it before, but I am truly obsessed. The summer I turned pretty. Season 3, we're cruising into episode 9. And I gotta say, I'm Team Conrad. So my Instagram is open. I want nothing more than to talk about the summer I turned pretty. So feel free to message me. I'll put a question out there, and everyone feel free to comment if you are watching. Jill R. Wagner, in case you don't follow me.
I have to say, I typically feel like I'm pretty plugged into the zeitgeist, Jill. On this particular show, I am not. So this is all you. All right, what are you reading this weekend?
Mo, straight from the Mo News Premium Slack channel, where we have a lot of book lovers. This is from CKT445. She just finished A Beautiful Family by Jennifer Trevelyan. She says it is set in New Zealand in 1985 around a family holiday. Very good. So I'm going to order that immediately and hope it gets here by tomorrow. What are you reading?
Jill, we did a partnership with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence last year. Mark Brackett is the founding director over there. He was the one who helped us conduct our survey when it came to the election and politics and how you were feeling before and after the election. We had him on for a special podcast. His last book was Permission to Feel. His new book that is out in just a couple of weeks that I'm getting started on is Dealing with Feeling. Harness your emotions to create the life that you want. He's very plugged in to emotional sentiment and emotional intelligence. And it is so key both for our personal lives and professional lives. We will be having Mark on the podcast in the coming weeks. So in the meantime, I'm reading Dealing with Feeling.
Love the title.
Jill, bring us home. What are you eating this weekend?
Well, I did not mention it at the top of the podcast because my husband does not like any attention, but it is his birthday today. So happy birthday, Michael. We're going to eat some cake, Moshe. Hopefully a little funfetti, or I'll surprise him with his favorite. So I don't want to give it away because he usually listens.
All right. Well, happy birthday, Michael. Save me a piece of cake, please. Freeze it like you do with your wedding cake, and we'll defrost it next time I come to visit you guys on Long Island.
Moshe, this is from 1999. Tell us how it is.
Jill, as for me, we had an opportunity to go to Raf's in Soho. It's a great restaurant. So if you're in New York and you're looking for a great meal, check it out. RAF Raf's. I think they do some breakfast stuff too, but we went there for dinner. And as for this weekend, probably we'll be grilling because, last real weekend of summer.
All right, everyone, we'll have a great weekend. And if my husband is still listening, really a happy birthday to him because Moshe, we just moved, as I have talked about on this podcast, and he has been spending, I think, 20 hours a day getting everything in the house in order. And it does not go unnoticed. Much appreciated.
On this day in history, Michael's parents gave us Michael, and we're all grateful for it.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Mo News podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
And make sure to join Premium. The code for 15% off only this weekend is Work It. A lot of fun stuff happening over there. So mo.news/premium. Come join the fun.
Work, 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 work.
I can listen to more than the app.